A single dad sleeps next to a stranger at the airport during a canceled flight. What he doesn't know is that she's an FBI agent who's been watching him for months. When she discovers the shocking truth about why he's under investigation, everything changes forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Michael Torres rubbed his tired eyes and checked his phone for the 100th time. 11:47 p.m. The gate area was nearly empty now, just a few other stranded passengers scattered across the uncomfortable airport chairs. His flight to Chicago had been canceled due to a storm, and the next available flight wasn't until morning. He looked down at his 7-year-old daughter Sophie, who was curled up against his side, using his jacket as a blanket. She had been so excited about visiting her grandparents, and now they were stuck sleeping in Denver International Airport. "Daddy, I'm cold," Sophie mumbled, not quite awake. Michael pulled her closer, wishing he had packed warmer clothes in their carry-on. The airport air conditioning was running full blast, and the thin airline blanket he'd managed to get from a sympathetic gate agent wasn't doing much good. "I know, sweetheart. Try to get some sleep. We'll be on a plane in the morning." A few seats away, a woman was having her own struggles with the cold. She was maybe in her early 30s with short brown hair and tired eyes. Like Michael, she was trying to make the best of sleeping in uncomfortable airport chairs. Michael noticed she was shivering despite her business suit jacket. She had been on the same canceled flight. He remembered seeing her at the gate earlier. She'd been working on a laptop, occasionally taking phone calls in a low, professional voice. Being a single father had taught Michael to be observant about people who might need help. His ex-wife had always said he was too trusting, too willing to help strangers. But that's just who he was. "Excuse me," he said softly, not wanting to wake Sophie. "Are you okay? You look cold." The woman looked up, surprised. Up close, Michael could see she had striking green eyes and a small scar above her left eyebrow. There was something alert about her expression, like she was always ready for something to happen. "I'm fine, thank you," she said politely, but Michael could hear her teeth chattering slightly. "Look, I know this might sound weird, but it's going to be a long night and it's freezing in here. If you want to move closer, we could share body heat." "Just for warmth," Michael said quickly. "I have a daughter, I'm just trying to help." The woman studied his face for a long moment, as if she was weighing some internal decision. Finally she nodded. "That's very kind of you. I'm Agent Sarah Chin." "Agent?" Michael asked as she gathered her things and moved to the seat next to him. "Insurance agent," Sarah said smoothly. "I'm Michael Torres and this little one is Sophie." Sarah settled in next to them, and immediately Michael could feel the shared warmth. Sophie, still mostly asleep, instinctively curled toward the additional heat source. "She's beautiful," Sarah said, looking down at Sophie with what seemed like genuine warmth. "How old?" 7. "We're going to visit her grandparents in Chicago." "Well, we were supposed to." Michael adjusted his position so Sophie was comfortable between them. "What about you? Business or pleasure?" "Business," Sarah said. "Always business." There was something in her tone that made Michael think she didn't have much pleasure in her life. As a single dad, he understood what it was like when work consumed everything. "What kind of insurance do you sell?" he asked, trying to make conversation to stay awake. Sarah hesitated for just a moment. "Life insurance. I investigate claims, make sure everything is legitimate." "That sounds interesting. Must see a lot of human nature in that job." "You have no idea," Sarah said, and there was a weight to her words that suggested she'd seen more than her share of human darkness. They talked quietly through the night, careful not to wake Sophie. Michael learned that Sarah traveled constantly for work, that she had no family to speak of, and that she seemed to know an unusual amount about airport security procedures. Sarah learned that Michael was a high school teacher, that he'd been raising Sophie alone for 3 years since his divorce, and that he was the kind of person who would offer help to a stranger without thinking twice about it. What Michael didn't know was that Sarah Chin wasn't an insurance agent. She was FBI Special Agent Sarah Chin, and she had been watching him for the past 6 months. The Bureau had received a tip that Michael Torres was involved in a money laundering operation. Someone had been using his social security number and bank account information to move large amounts of money through various accounts. The transactions were sophisticated, carefully hidden, and pointed to someone with inside knowledge of the banking system. Sarah had been assigned to investigate. She had followed Michael's routines, watched his interactions, monitored his finances. She had expected to find a criminal, someone living beyond their means, someone with connections to organized crime. Instead, she had found a dedicated teacher who struggled to pay his bills, drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic, and spent his free time coaching Little League and helping Sophie with her homework. She had watched him donate his lunch money to students who couldn't afford to eat. She had seen him stay late after school to tutor kids for free. None of it made sense with the profile of a money launderer. But orders were orders and the evidence was there. Someone was using Michael's identity, and Sarah's job was to figure out if he was complicit or a victim. She had arranged to be on his flight to Chicago, planning to use the trip to get closer to him, to find out what he was hiding. The cancelled flight had been an unexpected opportunity. Now, sitting next to him in the airport, feeling the warmth of his presence and watching him be gentle with his sleeping daughter, Sarah was more convinced than ever that Michael Torres was innocent. "Tell me about your ex-wife," Sarah said quietly. It was a fishing expedition, but she needed to understand his life better. Michael's face tightened slightly. "Amanda. We got married young, divorced when Sophie was 4. She said I wasn't ambitious enough, that I'd never make enough money to give them the life they deserved. That must have been hard. The hardest part was Sophie. Amanda moved to California with her new husband. Sophie visits her during summers, but..." Michael looked down at his daughter. "I sometimes wonder if Amanda was right. Maybe Sophie would be better off with more money, better opportunities." Sarah felt a stab of something unexpected, protectiveness, maybe even anger. Money isn't everything. Sophie is lucky to have a father who puts her first. "How do you know that?" Michael asked with a tired smile. "You just met us." "I can tell," Sarah said. And she could. 6 months of surveillance had shown her exactly what kind of father Michael was. Around 3 a.m., Sophie woke up crying from a bad dream. Michael immediately gathered her in his arms, whispering soft reassurances. Sarah watched the gentle way he calmed his daughter, and felt her heart do something she wasn't prepared for. "It's okay, baby girl. Daddy's here. You're safe." "I dreamed the plane crashed," Sophie whispered. "That's not going to happen. Planes are very safe. Safer than cars, remember? We talked about this." Sophie nodded but stayed pressed against her father's chest. After a few minutes, she looked over at Sarah with curious eyes. "Are you flying alone?" Sophie asked with the directness of a child. "I am," Sarah said. "That must be lonely. Daddy says flying is more fun when you have someone to share it with." Sarah felt an unexpected tightness in her throat. "Your daddy sounds very wise." "He is. He knows everything about everything. Well, except how to braid hair. He's still learning that." Michael laughed softly. "I'm getting better at the braiding." "You put my hair in a ponytail and call it a braid," Sophie said with 7-year-old sass. Sarah found herself smiling, genuinely smiling for the first time in months. "I know how to braid. Maybe I could teach your dad sometime." "Would you?" Sophie asked eagerly. "Daddy tries really hard, but..." "Sophie," Michael said gently, "don't volunteer other people for things." "But she offered." Sophie protested. Sarah looked at Michael and something passed between them. "I did offer. Maybe when we get to Chicago if you have time." The rest of the night passed quietly. Sophie fell back asleep and Michael and Sarah continued talking in whispers. Sarah found herself sharing more than she should have about her lonely childhood, about choosing a career over relationships, about wondering sometimes if she'd made the right choices. Michael talked about the challenges of single parenthood, about his fears that he wasn't enough for Sophie, about how he'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos and still got it wrong half the time. As the sun started to rise through the airport windows, Sarah made a decision that went against every protocol she'd been taught. She was going to recommend that the investigation into Michael Torres be closed. More than that, she was going to find out who was really using his identity and make sure they paid for it. When their morning flight was finally called, Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in years: reluctance to say goodbye to someone. "This was nice," Michael said as they gathered their things. "I mean, not the cancelled flight part, but meeting you. Talking with someone who listens." "I had a nice time too," Sarah said and meant it. "Sarah," Sophie called out as they walked toward the gate. "Don't forget about the braiding lesson." Sarah looked back at them, Michael with his rumpled shirt and tired eyes, Sophie with her tangled hair and bright smile, and felt her carefully constructed walls crack a little. "I won't forget," she promised. On the plane, Sarah sat 3 rows behind Michael and Sophie, officially still conducting surveillance but actually just watching them interact. She saw Michael help Sophie with a coloring book, share his pretzels with her, and point out landmarks through the window. When they landed in Chicago, Sarah followed them at a distance. She watched Michael's face light up when he saw his parents waiting at baggage claim. She saw Sophie run into her grandparents' arms. She saw a family reunion full of love and warmth. That night, from her hotel room, Sarah called her supervisor. "Torres is clean," she said without preamble. "He's a victim, not a perpetrator. Someone is using his identity, but it's not him." "How can you be sure?" "Because I've been watching him for 6 months and I've never seen anyone more genuine in my life. He's a single father, a teacher, and he doesn't have the resources or connections to launder money. We need to dig deeper and find out who's really behind this." There was a pause. "Chin, you're usually more cautious about your assessments." "I'm certain about this one." It took Sarah 3 more weeks to crack the case. Michael's ex-wife Amanda had been using his personal information to help her new husband launder money from his construction business. She had access to Michael's social security number from their marriage, his bank account information from their divorce proceedings, and his trust in her when it came to matters involving Sophie. Amanda had been intercepting mail sent to Michael's address, had been using his credit to open accounts he didn't know about, and had been counting on his trusting nature and busy life as a single parent to keep him from noticing the discrepancies. When the FBI arrested Amanda and her husband, Sarah insisted on being the one to tell Michael personally. She found him at the elementary school where he taught, in his classroom after hours, grading papers. He looked up when she knocked on the doorframe and his face broke into a surprised smile. "Sarah, what are you doing here? I thought you were an insurance agent from Denver." Sarah stepped into the classroom and closed the door behind her. "Michael, we need to talk. And I need to be honest with you about something." The confusion on Michael's face slowly turned to concern as Sarah explained who she really was and why she had been watching him. She told him about the investigation, about Amanda's crimes, about how his identity had been stolen and used. "You're FBI?" Michael said, sinking into his desk chair. "You've been watching me for 6 months?" "Yes. I'm sorry I lied to you. I was doing my job, but..." Sarah paused, struggling with words. "But somewhere along the way it became more than that." "More than what?" "Michael, that night at the airport, getting to know you and Sophie, it changed something for me. I've spent my whole career learning not to trust people, not to get emotionally involved. But you made me remember what it's like to be around genuinely good people." Michael was quiet for a long time, processing everything. "So when you said you were an insurance agent..." "I lied. When I said I investigate claims, that was partially true. I do investigate things, just not insurance claims." Sarah sat down across from him. "But when I talked about being lonely, about not having family, about wondering if I'd made the right choices, all of that was true." "And Sophie? When you were kind to her, when you offered to teach me to braid her hair, that was real. All of it was real." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "Michael, I know you have every right to be angry with me. I know this is complicated and confusing, but I need you to know that my feelings weren't part of the investigation. They just happened." Michael stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the playground where children were playing after-school programs. "My ex-wife stole my identity. An FBI agent has been watching me for months. My daughter asked me yesterday when we were going to see the nice lady from the airport again." He turned back to Sarah. "My life has gotten very complicated very quickly. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you or Sophie." "Are you?" Michael asked. "Sorry, I mean. Because part of me wonders if this is still part of some investigation." Sarah stood up, pulling her badge and ID from her purse. She set them on Michael's desk. "I'm taking a leave of absence. I need to figure out what I want from my life, and I can't do that while I'm working a case that involves you." Michael picked up her badge, studying it. "Special Agent Sarah Chin. Organized Crime Division." "Yes." "Why are you taking leave?" Sarah looked directly into his eyes. "Because I'm in love with you. Because I've watched you be an amazing father for 6 months, and I've seen how you put everyone else's needs before your own. Because that night at the airport was the first time in years that I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be." Michael set the badge down carefully. "Sarah, I know it's crazy. I know it's complicated. I know you probably can't trust me right now, and I understand that. But I had to tell you the truth. All of it." Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "Sophie is going to be so happy. She's been asking about you every day. She wants to know when you're coming to teach me how to braid her hair properly." "Really? Really? She like you, Sarah. And Sophie is a pretty good judge of character." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "What about you? Do you think you could ever trust me again?" Michael moved closer to her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "I think trust is something you build over time. I think honesty is a good place to start. And I think..." He paused, reaching up to touch her face gently. I think I've been hoping you'd come back since the moment we said goodbye at that airport. Even knowing what you know now? Especially knowing what I know now. You could have arrested me or kept investigating me or just disappeared from my life. Instead, you solved the case, cleared my name, and took a leave of absence to come tell me the truth. Michael's thumb brushed across her cheek. That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. Sarah leaned into his touch. I've never done anything like this before. I don't know how to balance a relationship with my job, or how to be part of a family. Well, Michael said, smiling that warm smile that had made her feel safe in the airport, I don't know how to date an FBI agent. So I guess we'll figure it out together. 6 months later, Sarah was officially off leave and back to work, but she had requested a transfer to white-collar crime, fewer dangerous situations, more regular hours, better for someone who now had a family to consider. She and Michael had taken things slowly, building trust and understanding piece by piece. Sarah had learned to braid Sophie's hair, had attended school plays and soccer games, had discovered the joy of being part of a real family. Michael had learned about Sarah's work, had seen her apartment with its security systems and lack of personal touches, had helped her create a life that was about more than just the job. The night Michael proposed, he did it in the Denver airport at the same gate where they had first met. Sophie was in on the plan, holding a sign that read, Agent Sarah, will you be my new mom? Sarah said yes through happy tears, and Sophie cheered loud enough to attract the attention of half the terminal. As they sat in those same uncomfortable airport chairs, now as a family, Sarah marveled at how much her life had changed. She had started watching Michael Torres as a suspect. She had ended up finding something she didn't even know she was looking for, a home, a family, and a love that was worth changing everything for. Do you ever regret it? Michael asked, watching Sophie play with her new travel game. Giving up the dangerous cases, the travel, the excitement? Sarah looked at her new family, her husband with his gentle eyes and steady presence, her daughter with her bright smile and endless questions, and felt the same warmth she had felt that cold night in the airport. Never, she said, and meant it completely. This is the greatest case I ever solved. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected circumstances. Sometimes the person you're meant to love finds you when you're not even looking. And sometimes the most important investigation you'll ever conduct is the one that leads you home.